Hello, my name is Chloe and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're going to be rewinding back to 2005 before I had my accident and telling you the story about the time I almost lost my virginity. And then the few months that followed after this, that was a flaming shit show in my life. So in early 2005, me, my mum and my sister moved from Australia to New Zealand. And this was the time in my life that I started to do the things that I shouldn't have been doing, such as sneaking out, doing drugs, and then more importantly to the context of this story, hanging around with boys. And the boy in this story we will call Chad. Me and Chad dated for I think a couple of months while I was in high school in New Zealand. And Mum, if you're watching this, here is yet another thing you had no idea about. I lived just out of town and Chad lived right on the edge of town. So it was about a 10-minute walk from my place to Chad's place. So I have quite a few memories of me being at his house or him being at my house when my mum and my sister weren't there. One of these incidences I remember being in his room. We barricaded his door closed and I was on his bed and we were basically dry humping. But apart from that, that's pretty much the extent to what we were doing while we were in the relationship. And then quite a few months after we broke up, I remember that we were still texting. I can remember one weekend when my mum and my sister were not at home and I was texting Chad. Basically, I invited him around and I told him to bring a condom. And this was where I know that I wasn't thinking straight, but foresight's a little bit of a bitch. I had the major hots for this other guy. And at this point, I sort of just wanted to get the V card over and done with. So that's why I was texting Chad. Basically, all I wanted from him was sex so that I could get all of this stuff out of the way. And I know now that this was the wrong way to go about this. I invited Chad over and we ended up in my bedroom, on my bed. We were making out for about 5 or 10 minutes and eventually our pants ended up coming off. And this was when I asked him if he brought a condom. This is where it got a little bit weird. Chad said, "Oh, yes, I have a condom. Where's your bathroom?" I was so naive back then, and looking back at it now, I realized there was basically no foreplay. All we were doing was making out. No touching, no groping, no fully naked, none of that. It was just kissing. So Chad went to the bathroom and about 5 minutes later he came back. And this was when I realized what his problem was. His flag was only flying at half mast and he had the condom wrapped around that. So we ended up back on my bed making out for a little bit more and then Chad tried to put it in, but it wouldn't go in. He was a little bit too floppy for anything to really work. So we tried it for 5-10 minutes or so, and then after a while we sort of both gave up. And then Chad left to go home. And I can remember this day so vividly. After he left, I ended up getting dressed and then going for a walk downtown. And I remember feeling different. I felt like I had just lost my virginity, but then I also felt a little bit ripped off, thinking, was that it? Is that what sex was? And me being so naive at such a young age, I had no idea. But then Monday came. Oh boy, Monday came. The first thing I heard when I got to school on Monday was that Chad had told the entire school that I could not get him up. So for the next 2 or 3 months, it was relentless. Everybody knew about this. Everybody was picking on me. Everybody was saying, "Oh, you couldn't get him up." But lucky for me, in a way, I had been bullied before. So none of this really fazed me. It just got really old when every single person that I talked to would bring it up. Looking back at it now, I don't blame Chad for doing what he did, because if I had have done the same thing, he would have looked so much worse. The main reason being that I was a lot more popular at school than he was. So the bullying that he would have gotten from this, if I had have done the exact same thing to him, would have been a bajillion times worse for him. And I'd been bullied at school before, so none of this really fazed me. I just brushed it off. I honestly did not care. And a few months after this, I ended up properly losing my virginity to Tom, who was the guy that I was absolutely crazy about. And needless to say, I had absolutely no trouble getting him to crack a fat when we were going at it, but the difference was that me and Tom actually had chemistry. Me and Chad, basically nothing. So that was the story about the time I almost lost my virginity. If you have your own stories that you would like to share, please write it in the comments. And if you like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you next week.